status, his victory over sin, his pleasing standing before the Father. We share in all that, and it belongs to us. And we enjoy the benefits of everything that he has achieved.
Here is Jonathan Griffiths with today's Moment of Truth.
The default mode of the human heart is to think that we need to earn our standing before God. We need to make some big victories over sin. We need to put in the miles and build up our account. We need to prove ourselves to him. And maybe that's how you tend to think this morning. Maybe you're actually here at church today because you want to do that very thing. You need to build up some credit with God, and what better way than clocking up some hours at church on a Sunday morning? But our passage here this morning reminds us that what matters first and foremost is not what we do, but who we know. We'll never do enough to earn our way into God's good books. We'll never do enough to impress him. We'll never do enough to right the wrongs in our lives. But here's the good news. Jesus has done everything that is needed. And the key thing, the thing that matters, the thing that is important above all other things, is to make for absolute certain that we are with him, that we belong to him, that he is our representative before God the Father, that we share in his victory and we share in his righteousness.
This has been today's Moment of Truth with Jonathan Griffiths. To learn more, visit encounterthetruth.org.
Hey, it's Brian and the team from Mornings with Brian. We hope you talk about the program with your family and friends and encourage them to listen.
You probably know we live stream the program through YouTube and Facebook every day.
Did you realize you can watch segments you liked again, check out any you missed, and share them all with others?
We'd love it if you'd help us reach more people with the gospel and the discussion of how it applies to all sorts of today's issues.
Watch or listen to Mornings with Brian live or later and share the video recordings too. Thanks.
Moody Radio Cleveland, broadcasting since 1958. WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
I just wanted to say thank you for being here.
House Republicans are taking steps to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Committees plan to push the resolution citing Garland's failure to comply with a subpoena demanding audio recordings of President Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur in his classified records probe. Hur described Biden as, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, end quote, a description that touched off a political firestorm. Akron Public School Superintendent Michael Robinson has outlined a plan that would cut 285 employee positions from the district. The goal of the plan is to eliminate $24 million in spending. 66 classroom positions, 58 non-classroom positions, and 77 non-certified substitute teaching positions would be among the cuts made by July 1st. And several Ohio cities are among the top 10 hottest housing markets in the nation. That's according to Realtor.com and the Wall Street Journal's quarterly Emerging Housing Markets Index. Canton was listed as the second hottest housing market in the country, followed by Akron in fourth. Sports and weather coming right up.
Moody Radio is thankful for King and Country.
But look around you. Your family, your faith, they're not in the way. They are the way.
From the creators of Jesus Revolution comes the true story.
It's going to be dangerous and scary, and giving up, it's not an option.
The story of one family's journey from down under to center stage. Unsung Hero, a For King and Country film starring Candace Cameron Bure and Terry O'Quinn. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. In theaters April 26th. More information available at unsunghero.movie.
In sports, the Cavaliers fell to the Celtics 109-102 in Game 4 and now trail that semifinal series 3-1. Therefore, they are facing elimination. Come on, Cavs, got to make it happen. The Guardians shut out the Rangers 7-0, and the Pirates edged the Brewers 8-6. Here is your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly sunny this morning, then becoming cloudy. A chance of showers today, even a chance of thunderstorms this afternoon. It's going to be cooler with our highs in the upper 60s. At last check, clear skies, 60 degrees in Cleveland. Akron and Canton, clear and 58. And in Youngstown, it is clear as well, 59 the temperature.
It's time for your moron moment.
In a first-ever human clinical trial, an mRNA cancer vaccine developed at the University of Florida successfully reprogrammed patients' immune systems to fiercely attack glioblastoma, the most aggressive and lethal brain tumor. While too early in the trial to assess the clinical effects of that vaccine, the 4 adult patients survived longer than expected with untreated cancer. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 6:03. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine studio, it's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Do you ever wonder why success can feel empty? Why is more money still never enough? Or why relationships can be so hard? Try something different today. On your way to work, turn on your radio and join our conversations about life's deeper questions. And don't worry, we drop the pretense and don't take ourselves too seriously. But like you, we're looking for transformation in life.
When you allow someone to fully know you and still love you.
Join us for Mornings with Brian, weekdays starting at 6 a.m. on 103.3 FM.
A teens community is on Snapchat or on TikTok. And so how would you go about having both? I would want my child to have their community. I don't want them to feel left out. I want them to feel like they're connected. But also, there is so much harm in social media. How can we have both?
Honestly, when you give your child Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is you're going to give them in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, whenever you're going to do that, does that automatically, magically make them so happy and so loved? I mean, it really, truly, if we're honest, it does the opposite, that all of a sudden now it opens up this whole world of oh my word, I thought I was good looking, but now I see a gazillion people who are better looking than me. Is that trait of drama and pain and constantly measuring themselves, is that pain worth it?
Mornings with Brian, Moody Radio Cleveland, 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
6:08 on Mornings with Brian. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Brian's out.
Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
Ron's here.
Yep.
Daria's here. And I'm Lauren. We're glad to be with you. I hear from Daria the live stream is working today.
It is. Thank you so much for your patience.
Look at that. Look at her, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I'm making sure people see the Cavs are still going.
I don't know what that means, but I support you.
Cavaliers, the basketball team.
Still going? What's wrong?
Well, they're in the playoffs, the semifinals, and they're down 3-1 to the Boston Celtics.
They're a good team, I hear.
Yeah, I'm impressed. You did hear that.
I hear.
Yeah.
There's a slight hesitation there, Ron. I think you're going to have some people mad at you.
About
the Cavs being good.
Oh, I thought you meant Boston was good.
I did think Boston was good.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Cavs are good, too. I don't know anything about basketball. It's the sport I know least about.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Less than lacrosse?
Okay.
Or rugby?
Okay.
If I had to pick a favorite sport to watch, it's probably basketball.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Mine would be baseball just because it's always on, so I have to choose it.
Because
Right.
your husband's obsessed.
Yeah, and if I don't like it, well, my life's going to be pretty sad because it's always on. So it'd go baseball, then football, then basketball for me. Ron, what about you?
Football, and then whichever one is doing better at the time. But I'm Cleveland only. I don't watch games if it's, the Cowboys and the 49ers or something. Ho hum. Not for me.
So you've kind of talked about this before where you kind of scaled back on your sports participation because of Dana, right?
Right.
She doesn't like it?
She doesn't like me not being part of the family.
Yes.
And, as a single guy, you can watch all the football games, all day Sunday and then Monday night and Thursday night. Well, that got to be a little much for her. She said there was a reason I agreed to marry you, and it wasn't to have you sit in front of the TV.
It was to be with her.
Yeah. So I decided she was worth it.
Oh,
good for you, Ron.
nice. Daria, does Jimmy watch sports?
No, he is not a sports guy. We are not a sports family.
Your parents?
My
Jimmy's
parents love football, specifically the Buckeyes. And I don't have a favorite team, but if my parents are watching the OSU basketball game, I'll watch. We've gone to a couple women's basketball games. I loved going to the basketball games in college.
Yeah, they are fun. They're not slow. I feel like football and baseball are slower.
Yeah.
A lot of stopping.
Yeah, football is, 2 seconds of concussions followed by 15 minutes of nothing.
Now, you may be wondering, how could they possibly be having all the sports talk and Brian's not butting in? Well, it's because he's not here. So,
even if he was here, this is about as much as he'd contribute anyway.
Less. He could contribute less. Brian's on vacation. He's just taking some good time off at home, hanging out. So it's us this week. So we're glad you're here. We hope you stick around with us. We've got some fun stuff ahead today. But I cannot forget to mention, we have a giveaway to Lauren Daigle. She's coming to Cleveland May 30th. I think that's a Thursday. Yep, Thursday, May 30th. She'll be at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And we have 5 pairs of tickets. So to enter to win, text Lauren to 440-546-2255. That's the word or name, Lauren, 440-546-2255 to enter to win. We'll announce the winners on the 24th. So you have about 2-ish weeks, 2 work weeks, I guess, to enter to win. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, the day before, and they started talking about using your non-dominant hand for things.
Okay.
Why is that?
Because apparently it crosses the hemispheres of your brain.
Okay.
And it will help you have better memory long term.
Interesting.
So I've started trying.
Okay.
I tried to brush my teeth with my other hand.
How'd that go?
It's like a 2-year-old.
Yes.
You wouldn't think, you're like, oh, my hand, it works fine.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
Not as finely skilled.
Yeah, with your you're brushing your teeth, you have your little rotation with your dominant hand.
Right.
I can't do that with my left hand.
You have trouble keeping the brush from going out your cheek.
Yes, exactly. And it's slow and really rigid.
So I play guitar, which requires you to be pretty dexterous with both hands because you're fretting, at least if you're right-handed, with your left hand. So I tried once. I'm like, I'm pretty, good with the left hand. Let me try writing. And it's just not the same set of skills. I can't do it.
Yeah. No, it's like it just doesn't even move and form in that way.
Yeah.
If you're driving, you can drive with your left hand because all the other buttons and knobs are on the right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about brushing teeth.
I suddenly feel bad for Brian because he's left-handed.
He is.
Because now I'm thinking about him reaching for the knobs when he's driving.
That's sad.
What's that? Yeah, what's that like? Does he need to order a British car?
Wow. Yeah, my mom's left-handed too. I can't imagine. But it helps your brain health, apparently, because you're crossing the hemispheres.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're creating new neuro pathways, whatever. I don't know the words.
Creates amusement for your spouse. Sure.
Yeah,
Eddie
probably.
was laughing at you this morning.
He didn't see me. He was resting his sweet little eyes.
I'd be skeptical of this effect that it has on your neural development.
You should try.
I've done it before. I'm
Didn't do
not
anything.
willing to, or not willing to try. But I'd want to see some
research.
Yeah, some serious scientific research. Not well, my buddies and I tried brushing our teeth and.
This is
we
actually
feel smart.
just the world's greatest troll. He just wanted to see how many people would make fools of themselves.
Sure.
What else could I do? I think brushing teeth might be the hardest. Well, writing, obviously. Because you type with your, both.
You probably have like a dominant hand when you're cooking, right? I wouldn't recommend trying it with a knife, but like stirring and stuff.
Oh, yes. I stir with my right. Yep. I'm going to try it.
Let us know.
I'll
Send
come
us
back.
a video.
I'll come back in like 2 years and see if I have a better memory. Ron, I'm going to challenge you. You got to try it too. You got to try to brush your teeth.
Okay.
With your non-dominant hand. Your left hand, right?
Yeah, I'm right-handed, so.
Daria, you too.
Okay.
Tomorrow you must come back.
All right.
That's your challenge. Everybody try to brush your teeth. It's very humbling, actually.
You two at home, let us know how that goes. We'd love to hear
Yeah,
from you
please.
tomorrow.
Your non-dominant hand, try brushing your teeth. It's a humbling experience, even if it doesn't create new neural pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So try it out and let us know tomorrow. Okay, we have a quick break, but after that, I want to talk about short-term goals that you can strive for. Some of them I didn't really like, and I want to know what you guys think. So start thinking about what are some short-term goals that you have, and we'll see if they align with this article.
We see it on TV all the time. Products or services that promise instant transformation. But the truth is, real change doesn't come easily. It's usually a slow, strenuous process. That goes for your spiritual life, too. But when you listen to Moody Radio, you hear the Word of God that provides true transformation. And your prayers and financial support help make that possible.
Give at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Hello, Rowan Warren here with your Pro-Abundant Life Minute. According to a Princeton University professor, the abortion debate today is not about when life begins, but about when society decides which person counts more, the mother or the baby. I agree. Both science and religion agree that new human life begins at conception. Considering this reality, the pro-life position is more defensible than the pro-choice position because it recognizes our duty to protect the most vulnerable among us. On the other hand, the pro-choice movement often relies on vague ideas like choice because they know that abortion ends a human life. For more pro-abundant life insights, visit care-net.org.
Bringing Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania closer to Christ, one conversation at a time. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
At Mornings with Brian, we discuss life's deeper questions without taking ourselves too seriously. Tune in for honest conversations intended to inspire lasting change. Start your Mornings with Brian weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on 103.3 FM.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That's Cutlass on Mornings with Brian. We're so glad you're here. Brian's out, but me, Lauren, Daria, and Ron are here. So we're excited to be with you this week. Before the break, I kind of talked about how there's an article, short-term goals you can strive for. Now, this article is not a Christian article. So they said, you may find yourself contemplating, is there any point to life? You'd be amazed at how many people feel like what they do has no meaning because they have nothing to strive for. Obviously, we know that's not true for us, okay?
Right.
But I do want to look at these short-term goals and see, like, are they good? Are they bad? I had some thoughts. I don't know if I fully agree here. So the first one is building financial security. So that's a short-term goal.
Dave would approve.
Dave would approve.
Right. But depending how old you are,
It could be
it's
a
not
long-term.
Yeah. If you're 21 and 22, just getting out of college, that's not a short-term goal.
Yes.
That's more of like, in the next 30 years, I want to develop that.
I don't know. I think there are different degrees to financial security. It kind of depends on, do I have kids? How close am I to retirement? I think a lot of, teens and very young adults don't have the best spending habits. So I think you can definitely make that a goal to, I'm going to eat out less. I'm going to put a little bit more money in savings.
Yeah, I guess. And also, what is security?
Right.
What does that mean?
That means something different for everybody.
That's right. They said, although putting money in your savings account each month is ideal, there are other ways you can build up your financial security. One of the best ways to get your hands on a lump sum of cash fast is to take out a personal loan.
That's not a good goal.
I thought he was going to rob a bank.
Stick them up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's not be taking out loans willy-nilly.
I just feel like that's not secure.
No,
that is not security.
That's the opposite. Like, oh, do you want money? Get a credit card.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a short-term goal. It says personal loans are the most flexible type of loan you can get, as they allow you to purchase just about anything you can think of.
That's not security, and they also have some of the highest interest rates.
Yes, financial security, no to whatever you're saying.
No,
Who are you and what are you talking about?
Let's not rack up unnecessary
Justin.
debt. Justin.
Okay. The second one is improving your health.
Okay.
That could also be a long-term goal.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Again, depending on who you are, what your diet is like, your family history.
Yeah. Yeah, and it could be if you have, a long-term health issue, it's going to take a while to kind of curb that.
It's a great goal, but it could take some time.
So then the whole 2 paragraphs, he just talks about losing weight. And that's a pet peeve of mine. Weight loss does not mean, or improving your health does not mean just losing weight.
Not necessarily.
There's so many other ways that you can, become more healthy.
Brian has talked about, he's as thin as a rail and he has had high cholesterol, I think it was, and didn't know it and had a blood test done and found out. And it's one of those things that you might never know because you would assume,
right,
he's thin, he must be healthy, and they are not equal.
That man doesn't.
Same for my dad.
That man does not run a day in his life.
Yeah, that's why he's got high cholesterol.
Exactly. Yeah, Eddie has high cholesterol too, and it's just like genetics. And so you can do things to curb it, but
right.
So he says you need to follow a diet that provides the right combination of protein, leafy greens, and nutrients to fuel your weight loss efforts. In addition to exercising for at least 150 minutes a week. I can't do that math. Can someone do that math by
half hour a day, 5 days a week?
Okay, that's not too bad. You get 2 rest days. You also need to cut out sugar, which means finding the hidden resources you've been consuming. Additionally, you need to focus on quality sleep. And this one, growing your own medicine. I assume he means vegetables.
Excuse you?
Yeah.
Does he mean vegetables, like growing your own food? Because food is medicine?
Yeah, or grow mold and make penicillin. I'm good at getting mold.
Okay. I mean,
get some sleep, grow your own medicine, and reduce stress.
We're gardeners, but not everybody has the ability or the green thumb to I kill plants, okay? I could kill a cactus.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. My plants will be dead. My medicine. So I don't really know what that means, but I assume he just means food. I don't know.
Yeah.
The next one, short-term goal, finding a new job.
that could take some time.
And not everybody is dissatisfied with the
That's
job
right.
they have. You know, I'm content where I am, so why do I want to go out and look for another job?
And I don't think we should count on our, you can enjoy your work and it can be a source of happiness, but I don't think we should look to it for a source of contentment and fulfillment.
Yeah, and sometimes finding a new job can be very stressful.
It is very stressful. When I graduated college and wanted to get back into radio, it took me over a year to find a job.
Someone texted in regards to improving your health, and they said, I'm pretty thin. I had a friend tell me one time that I could be unhealthy and I could be fat on the inside.
That is actually a thing.
Fat on the inside,
Yep.
huh? Wow.
So some people, they build up fat around their organs and it doesn't show outwardly.
Huh. So I should be happy mine's on the outside.
At least we can see it.
Right.
Oh, man. So finding a new job. Not only has the job market become very saturated, but the competition is also more fierce. He also said fiercer. Is that a word?
No.
If it is,
I'm
I
having
don't like
problems
it.
with Justin, who wrote this article.
Yeah, not more fiercer.
I guess we just let any Yahoo write anything on the internet nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh. If you're struggling to get started, your first course of action is to diversify your resume. How do you...
That's a short-term goal.
Yes.
Building my resume. I agree with that.
Yes, but not just flat out finding a new job. So that's that one. The next one is really crazy. Short-term
wow.
goal. Create your own website.
For why?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that in a couple hours to a couple weeks, but why do you need a website? Not everybody needs one.
Web design has seen a tremendous amount of popularity in the past few years.
Yeah.
These days, it's not only companies who have professionally made websites. Nowadays, almost everyone has their own website. I know they don't.
Unless you're a creative type. I actually do have a website, but most people don't need one.
Not most people. And then he talks about how you can use it as a folder to keep all your pictures and memories and stuff.
I use mine as a portfolio.
Right.
But for just your personal pictures?
Oh, no, I keep those
the
in my
professional
private
things,
cloud.
yeah. You don't need a website.
No, you don't.
To put your picture.
Majority of people don't need one.
It's called Facebook.
There you go. Or your phone.
Yes, or on your phone. So create your own website, everyone. Okay, and then the last one. Go on vacation.
That's a good short-term goal.
What do you think, Ron? Mr. No Vacations?
Yeah. They're overrated.
Why?
I guess for some people it probably is a short-term goal that can be beneficial, but a lot of times if you're going to be spending money on a vacation above and beyond the normal expenses of your week. So if you don't have the money,
yep.
And maybe that's why he's taken out a loan so he could go on vacation.
A personal loan.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can do vacations like Brian's doing this week.
Yeah.
Stay at home. There's so much to do around Northeast Ohio. You could take a day and visit a few places in Amish country, a day and go to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park and just walk around, and, day you could go to a favorite coffee shop and then go to a favorite ice cream shop and hit all the shops.
Yes.
Yeah, staycations are great. You're right. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Just unplug, spend some quality time with your family. Go camping if that's your thing. That's a really cheap way to get away.
Yeah, just get caught up on home projects.
Yeah.
Might feel nice just to take a week and do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So overall, Justin, sorry, no.
We don't like them.
You have a lot of outrageous things to say.
Take out a loan. It's not a good short-term goal.
Take out a loan and start a website. Short-term goals.
Justin's got life figured out, and he's got a lot of debt.
Yeah,
wow. He's probably 20 years old, and this is the first article he's ever written. He just threw it up there on the internet, and we happened to find it.
This kind of reminds me of the guy that his wife was pregnant, and he was 21, and he wrote a whole article about how to be a good parent.
Yes.
He'd never been a parent before.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. Well, so that's that. We don't agree with you, Justin. Sorry. After this, we have our friend Linda Uveges from the City of Mission. She's going to talk with us about how employment and workforce development programs help those who don't have, that are homeless, and said, what are some myths and what's actually true? So stick around, and we'll be right back with Linda Uveges.
Sin is not just breaking the rules of God, it's breaking the heart of God. I'm Darcy Harrod, and this is Pause for Prayer. When I heard Tim Keller say these words, it really brought me to my knees. I understand that there are rules, and I also understand that I inherently break them. I know that I'm sinful by nature. But once I also realized that my actions caused God's heart to be broken, well, that thought broke my heart too. Let's pause for prayer. Heavenly Father, I am so sorry for any pain that I have ever caused you with my sinful choices. Lord, you've been so good to me. You always give me what I don't deserve. You give me so much mercy, and you give me so much grace. And over again, I have chosen to sin. And I can see, Lord, that my sin breaks your heart. I don't want to break your heart. I don't ever want to hurt you, Father. Please fill me with your righteousness. Please help me, Lord, to make the right choices, not just because it's what the rules say to do, but because I know that if I choose wrongly, it will break your heart. However, Lord, because of Jesus Christ, I also know that, like Psalm 103:12 says, as far as the east is from the west, so far he has removed our transgressions from us. Lord, I could not be more grateful for that. Thank you so much, Father, for that everlasting gift of your Son's righteousness. So, Lord, yes, help me to remember that my sin breaks your heart, but also help me to remember that in Christ, my sins are forgiven. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
19. That's how many pairs of shoes the average American has in their closet. 1. That's how many pairs of shoes it takes to share health, education, opportunity, and the love of Christ to a child in need in the world. Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls has been meeting this need, providing more than 5 million pairs of shoes to children in some of the most vulnerable communities in the world. That's over 5 million opportunities to put a smile on the face of a child and show the love of Christ to boys and girls living in desperate situations. Many times these shoes introduce families to Christ-centered programs, helping them to rise above poverty and achieve their God-given potential. You can make a difference now. Join Buckner Shoes for Orphan Souls in changing the lives of children across the world through the gift of shoes. I'm Rob West, inviting you to provide shoes today by visiting GiveShoesToday.org. That's GiveShoesToday.org.
Is there an age that you would recommend for parents for waiting for your kids to get social media or screens? So I guess the two, social media and screens.
You know, Bill Gates waited till his kids were 14 to give a phone, and he kind of knew something about phones.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Jobs, when he was asked, how do your kids like the iPad? You know, he's like, oh, I don't let my kids use the iPad. So, you know, we should kind of take clues from these people of like, why did you do that?
I think it was the founder of Pinterest, or like one of the creators.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, my kids don't have social media.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Can you imagine?
I'm like, you created this and your kids don't have it.
Right?
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That was Jason Nelson on Mornings with Brian. It's 6:38. We're here with Linda Uveges, the CEO of the City Mission. Hi, Linda.
Good morning.
Glad you're here. You wanted to talk about employment and workforce development amongst those experiencing homelessness. Can you kind of talk about why this came up this week for you?
Sure. I'm part of a advisory group that's called Social Determinants of Health Advisory Group, really addressing some of the disparities and the struggles that people experience, especially those in experiencing homelessness and instability. And before I move forward, just to define what do we mean by social determinants of health? And those are really, there's several key areas that we focus on, and that is going to be transportation, housing, and access to food. So those are some very basic needs that every person needs to have to live a healthy life. And there's the universal definition, this is a working definition of social determinants of health, is conditions in which people are born, grow, work, live, and age. So those are the social determinants of health. Non-medical factors, we're talking about those basic needs. So clearly, we're looking at that at the City Mission, and, how do we address some of these underlying issues that bring someone to the mission.
Can you say those three areas that you look at again?
Yeah, the three main ones are transportation, housing, and access to food.
All right. Thank you. So what are some of those barriers that you're seeing for the residents at the City Mission to obtaining those three kind of key areas of health?
Right. So when we think about we talk a lot about economic mobility, which is really stable employment. How are you going to establish work and employment? And, one of the first things are having a permanent address. It's very difficult to find employment, and not just any employment, but sustainable and a wage where you can thrive. So not having a permanent address is clearly a huge barrier for many of our residents. So starting with that, at least, when they're at the mission, they're with us for, 9 to 12 months. But the goal is to find that stable, permanent, safe housing.
Yeah.
So that they can take that next step. So housing is clearly a barrier for our residents obtaining employment. And another one, which we talk about, is transportation. And, many of our residents don't have vehicles. So having access to, very timely transportation where they can get to a job and get there on time. And it's challenging to get a job out in the suburbs or that's further out when they're maybe they're home or when they're staying with us. It's in Cleveland, and how do we get there? And so working on providing access to quality transportation is really important. So that's a barrier for many of our residents.
Yeah, and then if they get a job that's close to maybe the City Mission, then what happens once they leave the City Mission and they still don't have transportation to get there once they've left your care?
Exactly. And so when we do look for employment and work with our residents to find that employment, we are looking always where there's it's close to a bus line or the RTA or something that we know will be sustainable, because you're right. I mean, if they find a job in Cleveland but end up moving to Medina or or Lorraine, well, how are they going to do that?
Right.
And so we make sure that we address those barriers.
And you have programs helping the men and women get jobs, right?
We do. We have at both campuses, we have a resource center, which is our workforce development. And we are, connecting our residents, and we're connecting with the community because we look at what jobs are out there, what are available, what would be a good career choice for some of our residents, and what are their gifts, because they all have skills and gifts and talents that they can do, and they want to use those. So we'll do assessments and say what works for you. And in fact, right now we're working with the local hospitals, so Cleveland Clinic and and Metro, and looking. I know, for example, the clinic, they have 2,000 openings. They need people. And so now we're connecting with them and saying, what do we need to do to have our residents ready for those jobs? And so we're going to have a specific workforce track where our residents are now prepared for those jobs. So when they do apply, they will have all the skills that they need and have done all the preparation.
Mm-hmm. I think there's often, we hear it, maybe we've had the thought ourselves, that there's a stigma that people experiencing homelessness don't want to work, and that's why they're experiencing homelessness. They just want to be lazy and they don't want to do anything. What do you say to that?
Right. So, yeah, I always get worked up about that comment because that's just not my experience and what I see. And, I heard, a while ago, I think it was it was a conversation actually between two Supreme Court justices, and one said to the other, well, you just gotta, they gotta pick themselves up by their bootstraps. And I'm sure you've heard, well, what if you don't have any bootstraps? Mm-hmm. And that's the case. So many are, I want to do this. I don't even have the bootstraps to pull on. So being able to give them those opportunities. And so I think my experience, and, I've been at the mission for 20 years, and the individuals that I have encountered are, I want to work. I know that I want to provide for my family. And so that's just not the experience that I have. And sure, there are always going to be people on the extreme or wanting to use the system or whatever, but I have seen that the individuals we serve really they're coming for change. They want to change, mm-hmm. and they want to have a better life. Yeah.
After this break, I want to talk to you more about how today's economy with wages and how things work with, entry-level jobs work with those experiencing homelessness. So stick around and we'll be right back with Linda Uveges.
Music is an important way that we can joyfully worship the Lord. This month, take your family on an exploration of music in the Bible with Today in the Word's Family Study. This kid-friendly devotional will help keep your entire family grounded in Scripture and includes hands-on activities to help your children understand why music is a wonderful gift from God. Get your free Today in the Word devotional and download the free Go Along Family Study at todayintheword.com.
The Every Woman's Bible is a study Bible for the heart and mind. Engaging study notes and devotionals address topics relevant to women with cultural, historical, and literary clarity and context to gain greater understanding. Over 100 Every Woman's Bible scholars, writers, and contributors, all women from around the world, invite you into a global community. Begin your journey today at everywomansbible.com. Tyndale's best-selling Every Man's Bible is also available at tyndale.com.
How do we give generously as Christians? And how do we help our kids learn biblical generosity? Join us as we learn from this week's guest, Dr. Greg Quiggle, on how to talk about generosity in a biblical way.
The Car Seat Questions Podcast. New episodes every Wednesday on YouTube and every podcast platform.
You can secure your master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Moody Theological Seminary. Study at the Chicago or Plymouth, Michigan campuses. Be equipped as a servant leader who can transform your community. The graduating class of 2017 had a 100% job placement and a 100% pass rate on the National Counselor exam. You'll be equipped to meet the needs of others while you reflect the character of Christ. Get started today at moody.edu/counseling. That's moody.edu/counseling.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
6:48 on Mornings with Brian. We're here with Linda Uveges, the CEO of the City Mission. We've been talking about barriers that those experiencing homelessness face as they try to get out of the homelessness, as they try to, as we were just talking about, quote unquote, pick themselves up by their bootstraps. What are the barriers that they're facing? We were talking about how finding a job nearby that they can get to, in a reliable way, as well as a job that's going to pay them enough. So Linda, what are they facing as they're trying to find jobs that are going to sustain them to be able to pay rent, but they're also a lot of times entry-level jobs?
Right. And what we know is that for, let's say, a woman with children to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, she needs to make at least $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Really, we're looking $19.19 is the wage, but that's barely making it. And so, and if she were to work at least 60 hours a week, then
Wow.
she'd be able to do that. And that's just not possible. With children and getting them to date, she can actually get there and then take that same trip home. So the wages that are needed, and we call them livable wages. We are not looking just to barely make it, because if it's so fragile, you might end up experiencing homelessness again. If it isn't enough to support you. So entry level jobs are. It's been very interesting because it's average. Wages are hourly $15 an hour are what you can see at a fast food restaurant or other places, and so but everything is going higher. So wages haven't kept up with the increase in rent and groceries, right? So all those are more expensive, but the wages have not kept up with that. And so it's a big challenge. And before someone leaves or graduates our program, we want to make sure that they have attained that livable, sustainable wage where they're not in a fragile condition where if one thing went wrong, they're going to be back in crisis again. So we are really wanting to prepare our residents for that career. And sometimes it starts with entry level. You got to start somewhere. But the goal is to increase and develop their knowledge and their skills and their wages.
Can you share maybe a success story you've seen recently of someone really getting into a job and seeing them work to get that livable wage, rent a house and start to get their footing back under them again?
Yes, that's a great question, and love to share those stories. We had a resident at Laura's home, and she had been with us for probably, the whole program, probably 9 months or so, and she was in the healthcare field but lost her license. And so she went back to school and got her phlebotomy certification. Yeah, and she wanted to practice on me, and I said no. But
yeah, no, thank you.
Yes, I was just kidding. She was so funny, but she worked hard. She took the classes while she was at the mission and received her phlebotomy license. Wow. And is now working at a hospital. And there was another mom who is a community health worker, which is amazing. And her job is going to help those who are experiencing homelessness or in poverty. And she has lived experience, obviously, and then she also has the skills to be able to help others, and is living on her own, living independently, it paying rent and just towards ownership. And it's just, those are great stories. And that really does break the cycle that we talk about, breaking that cycle of poverty and for generations. It's for her children and herself. And it's so rewarding to see.
Yeah. We've heard you say that homelessness is complex. Can you share more about the complexity of homelessness and what that looks like in looking for jobs in today's economy?
Sure. When there is not a one-size-fits-all answer to everybody's situation, and that's what we see. We see people come to us with unique situations, and sometimes people who don't understand the population or who we serve, will say some of those things that we already talked about. Well, why can't they just get a job? Why can't you just do this?
Right.
And what is happening is, when we serve someone, and I know you've heard me say this before, is, we don't look at somebody and say, what's wrong with you? That isn't our approach. It's what's happened to you. And so as we, share or help each individual, we're asking those questions, so what happened? And then we learn about that person. And it's very complicated. It's mental illness. It's domestic violence. It's, addiction and trauma. And it's so complex. There is not one answer or one response to address all of these issues. So when we have someone that we get to care for, we talk about those things and we discover what's happened, and then we address them, and we can talk about healthy choices or healthy boundaries and talk about that trauma, so that now you are in a better, stable place to be employed, to care for your children, to care for yourself. And so that makes all the difference, because you can get a job. It's really easy to get a job, actually. But how about keeping it, and sustaining that? That's the hard part, because you need to show up every day on time. You need to be able to handle conflict within an employment environment and all those things. And so if we don't address those complex situations, that job isn't going to stick, and they're going to be in that same situation.
Yeah. Linda, we always appreciate you sharing the complexities and the myths and what's actually true about those experiencing homelessness. If people wanted to know more about the City Mission, maybe they want to volunteer or, get to know your mission, where can they find more information?
Yeah, thank you. Go to our website, thecitymission.org, and all opportunities are on our website. And we love volunteers. We could not do what we do without volunteers. We need help with caring in our child care, or providing meals, or anything that we can put you to work and have opportunities to help and engage with our residents. And so everything's on there, and that would be wonderful. And if anybody ever wants a tour, I'm happy to give them a tour of the mission.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks so much, Linda. You have a good day.
All right, thank you. You too. Bye.
We have to get to Ron's news. But before that, we have a song by Ryan Stevenson. I don't know who that is. It sounds new.
No, it's been around a little bit.
This song is from 2016.
What? I've never seen this in my entire life. Well, look at that. You learn something new every day, right, Ron?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Ryan Stevenson, right before Ron's news.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Kyiv. It's 7:01. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. His surprise visit is aiming at reinforcing America's support for Ukraine as it fights off Russian troops who have opened a new front line in the northeast of the country. Blinken is expected to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss the situation on the battlefield and the impact of a recently passed $61 billion in military aid for the war-torn country. Ohio lawmakers are introducing a new bill that would broaden the criteria for committing people to hospitals against their will. House Bill 249 would allow for officers to hospitalize a person who refuses treatment or refuses to take their medication if they have been diagnosed with one or more of 5 mental health conditions. And state transportation officials are teaming up with the Ohio Academy of Pediatrics to once again distribute thousands of bike safety helmets to children across the state. Authorities say more than 100,000 helmets have been distributed to Ohio children since the program began in 2011. I'll have sports and weather in just a moment.
Ever wondered if there's a way for Christians to meet their healthcare costs affordably and efficiently? A biblical lifestyle alternative to traditional healthcare options? The answer is Christian Healthcare Ministries. They've enabled believers to live out their faith while embracing a voluntary health cost ministry for over 40 years. It all starts with a visit to chministries.org/Moody to see how CHM meets values and healthcare costs. Get more information and have your questions answered at chministries.org/Moody.
In sports, the Cavaliers fell to the Celtics 109-102 in Game 4, and they now trail in that semifinal series 3-1 and are facing elimination. The Guardians shut out the Rangers 7-0, and the Pirates edged the Brewers 8-6. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly sunny this morning, then becoming cloudy. A chance of showers today, even a chance of thunderstorms this afternoon. It's going to be cooler with our highs in the upper 60s. And at last check, we did have some clouds rolling into the area. It is 63 degrees with clouds in Cleveland, Akron and Canton, some clouds and 58 degrees. And even Ashtabula reporting mostly cloudy skies and 58 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
In a first ever clinical trial of humans, an mRNA cancer vaccine developed at the University of Florida successfully reprogrammed patients' immune systems to fiercely attack glioblastoma, the most aggressive and lethal brain tumor. While it's still too early in the trial to assess the clinical effects of the vaccine, the 4 adult patients survived longer than expected without treatment. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:04. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine Studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
7:08 on Mornings with Brian. Brian's out this week, but Lauren's here, Ron's here, Daria's here, and we're glad you're here with us.
Yeah.
Ron, what kind of cell phone did you get for the first time? What was your first cell phone?
The first one I got was from my employer. It was a Nextel with the push-to-talk, walkie-talkie kind of.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
Were you able to use it for personal use or just for work?
Personal, too. I had to keep it with me at all times.
Oh, okay. Daria, what kind of phone did you have?
It was one of the early gens of Nokia.
Ooh. I don't remember what brand mine was, but it was black. It was very thin. It was like a razor, like thin like a razor, and you flipped it up. And in between, like the hinge where it flips, there was a camera that you could roll. So you could either take selfies or pictures facing outward.
Yeah, some of my friends had those. They were fancy.
Oh, very fancy.
Yeah, I just had, my parents didn't, like, they were resistant to the phones for a really long time. I finally got, like, the most basic phone you could get. It was $20 because there was an emergency on the school bus and I couldn't call them, which is the only reason I had a phone for, like, 10 years.
Yeah, one of my husband, Eddie, one of his really good friends has what he calls a dumb phone.
That's what I call them, too.
Yep, he can make calls and text.
My dad is a dumb phone aficionado.
It's not hard to do. It just does the two basic things.
Well, he struggles with that too. The two basic things.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but today's youth are not getting dumb phones.
No.
They're getting real fancy phones, and it's becoming a problem in schools. So earlier this year, I think it was in March, Governor DeWine launched a messaging effort calling all school districts to restrict screen time for middle and high school students while at school. In his State of the State address, he said that phones are a distraction from the learning process, an impediment to building basic social skills, and a drain on kids' mental health.
Okay.
So the lawmakers were like, that's no problem. We have a fix for that. So they sent DeWine House Bill 250. The Ohio Senate passed the bill last month, and the Senate passed it last month, and the House followed this week. Was that last week? Yeah, last week. And both were unanimous.
Wow.
The bill doesn't have any like statewide standards, but it's each school district must pass policy emphasizing that students should use phones, quote, as limited as possible during the school day. It allows exceptions for students, a student learning, or to monitor or address a health concern. So, what did you guys have? Well, Ron, you didn't have phones in school. Daria, what did you have to do with your phone in school?
Phones were completely banned from the moment they first entered schools, before smartphones were even really a widespread thing. If you were caught with a phone or even an iPod, it would be confiscated. Like, they had a zero tolerance policy for technology.
Okay, so that's my question. Can you take away something that isn't, like, can the school take it away if it's not, like, it's your property?
That was something that they ran into because parents would get very mad. They're like, you didn't pay for it. Like, some teachers would go as far as to say you're not getting it back for the rest of the year. But
yeah,
they literally can't do that because the parents paid for it. When phones became super widespread, like, you technically weren't supposed to have it, but it got to the point where they couldn't do anything because everybody had one.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, it's kind of strange that the phones are so widespread in school, because it's just, with the era I was in when I grew up, that was just normal. Like, no, you don't have your phone at school. It's fine at recess or whatever. So I think it's strange that there needs to be a law for it, because for me, that's just how it was growing up.
Yeah. Ron, was probably similar for your kids as me, but, like, we had to put our phones, like, in our lockers or something like that. We couldn't have them out, like, on our desks, or, like, there was no way you're going to be caught texting in class.
Well, you shouldn't. But
yeah.
My son told me about a little thing they called mosquito ringtone.
What?
And it'll give you a high-pitched ringtone.
Adults can't hear it.
Yeah. We've lost enough.
Old.
Yeah. By the time you're old enough to teach, you're 25 more or less and up. You've started to lose some of those high frequencies. And so the kids could set a high-frequency ringtone that they would hear and know, oh, I got a text. And teacher would have no idea.
Wow. I didn't know about that.
Pretty clever.
I'm upset about that. Well, Brian's not here to talk about what's going on with kids, and his kids and what he sees with, like, his kids' classmates today. So if you're a parent of a child who's school age, has a phone, text or call 440-546-2255. Let us know what's going on with your kids and their phones at schools. With this new House bill, so it was passed by the Senate, and the House. And now it's going to Governor DeWine to say, okay, so what are we going to do with it? So assuming he's going to sign it, right, because he's the one that kind of started this.
I doubt it will fail at this point.
Yeah. If it passed both the House and the Senate, now it's with him. It would be, schools would have to adopt the policies starting in 2025.
No definition on what that policy is, really.
No, it just says, quote, as limited as possible, and allows for exceptions for health concerns.
That can mean literally anything.
Yeah, so this is a do-nothing bill asking school boards to spend time to do nothing.
Yeah, just put in a policy in
words.
place.
Yeah, it's a big show. I think phones in school, though, when Columbine happened, it really triggered a lot of parents to be like, I want my kid to be able to call the police or call help if there's a school shooting, and not just be stuck in a classroom hoping they can get out a window or something.
Right. Yeah, it says many Ohio schools already have such policies in place. For instance, Akron Public Schools prohibit cell phone use in school buildings. Students' phones are held in special pouches with magnetic locks during the school day. Parma City Schools limit cell phone use at high school to break times between class, plus lunch and study halls. Smartphones are not allowed at its middle school and elementary schools. In contrast, Beechwood City Schools requires its middle school students to keep phones in their lockers during the day, but high school teachers have discretion over what to do with their students' phones. Some use lock boxes, some want them face down on their desks. So text or call 440-546-2255. What do we think about this? Keeping your kids' phones away from them during school. You paid for it. So should the school really be able to dictate if they can or can't have it during the school day? Text or call 440-546-2255.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838. That's 1-800-659-9838.
Moody Radio is thankful for King and Country.
But look around you. Your family, your faith, they're not in the way. They are the way.
From the creators of Jesus Revolution comes the true story.
It's going to be dangerous and scary, and giving up, it's not an option.
The story of one family's journey from down under to center stage. Unsung Hero, a For King and Country film starring Candace Cameron Bure and Terry O'Quinn. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. In theaters April 26th. More information available at unsunghero.movie.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Can you believe it? It's another presidential election year. Everybody loves condescending political ads, angry protests, and doomsday rhetoric. Or maybe you're like us and you're sick of the partisan politics, tired of all the fighting. Ready for something different? Give our morning show a try. We take on all the issues, but we sift through the noise, searching for honest conversation that leads to lasting change. If you don't know, ask somebody. It happened earlier this morning. Join us for Mornings with Brian, weekdays starting at 6 a.m. on 103.3 FM.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That's Maverick City Music on Mornings with Brian. Brian is out. Ron is here. Daria is here. Me, Lauren, I'm here. We're talking about a new bill that has been passed by Ohio Senate and the House. So it's going to Governor DeWine's desk now. It is about banning phones in schools.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of non-committal.
Right.
It's just like schools must have a policy about phones.
Yeah.
That's kind of all it is. And Brian's not here to talk to us about what's going on in schools. I don't know. I have a 3-year-old, so I don't know what's going on.
I wonder if the aim of the bill was more to just empower schools, because parents have been really upset that there's been, some parents, any sort of restrictions at all for the phones. Because like, well, I paid for it, which, you know, I don't think the teachers have the right to confiscate it unless it's being a genuine distraction.
Yeah.
But to say you can't even have your phones at all, which some schools have tried to do, I don't know, just letting the parents know we do have legal recourse.
Yeah. What do you think about, I feel like for like a middle school, obviously elementary school, just call the school.
Right.
Figure out what's going on, or the school will call you. Middle school, I'm kind of in that same, feeling that kind of same way. But for high school, I feel like a student should be able to contact their parents or text their parents if they needed to for something.
But I try to think of why they would need to, other than like a school shooting or...
Yeah, right.
But like if you're feeling sick, you don't...
Go to the office.
Yeah, you don't text your mom and say, hey, can you pick me up? You got to go to the office.
Because you got to sign out.
Yeah. If you're unhappy with the teacher who reprimanded you for talking
using your phone?
again, you shouldn't text your mom about that.
Just tell her later.
Yeah. It just seems like so many of the things, you know, trying to make plans for after school.
Just wait.
Yeah, wait. You can do that later. You don't need it in class.
Someone did text it and say, why should the classroom be different from the workplace? Your phone is a distraction. Lots of employers have a no cell phone policy. Oh, really? Someone said, in our high school, they use their phones as a tool. In middle school, no phones are allowed during the school day.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of schools are, because it's so prevalent, they work it into actually using it.
Yeah, and then some phones have things like Chromebooks and stuff like that they use instead.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's kind of hard. It's like, well, you want them to use this one technology like a Chromebook, but you don't want them to use their phones.
Yeah. And see, back when I was in school, calculators were so new that the school had bought calculators and then
Texas Instrument.
screwed them down onto a piece of board that was so big you could not it'd be obvious if you were trying to carry it out of the classroom.
What did they think you were going to do with it?
Steal it. Because at that point,
they were nice.
Yeah, it wasn't the little plastic TI-30s or whatever we had later. These were, probably $300 calculators. Oh, yeah. And it's so funny how that changed, even just through the course of my high school, by the time I was a senior, we had a, I don't know, $50 to $100 TI-30, whatever it was back then.
Yeah. We had someone text in and say, I'm a teacher in a public school. Last year, students would be yelling at me all kinds of bad words when asked them nicely to put it away. I was insulted almost once a week. 80% of the students would be watching movies, playing games, and texting. They got violently screaming at me if I said something. There was barely anyone learning. This school year, after, I don't know what that means, maybe after the bands or something like that, it'd be a different world. It made a world of difference. At the beginning, it was actually strange to see every face in the room look at me while I teach.
Wow.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Not only are teachers not getting paid enough, but they're also not getting listened to.
Yeah.
And people are just looking at their phones.
And then they get shade cast on them from parents who are like, look at this education system. Our kids are coming out and they can't read or write. Well, it's not for lack of the teachers trying.
Exactly. They're trying. But the phones that you bought your children, they're just staring at them.
Yes.
I think I'm getting more and more convinced I'm just going to do dumb phones for my kids until they're like 17 or something.
Right.
We'll see. I say that now.
Right. But
we'll see what it's like then.
It's a good stand to start with.
Yeah, we have Kim in North Canton. She's a teacher. Kim, what are you thinking about?
Oh, good morning. What a fantastic topic, and I really appreciate the point that the last person who texted shared with us, because it is absolutely a problem that has gotten way beyond our ability to control this. Teachers are abused in schools. The kids really have opted out. They've opted out, and now education is not important anymore. And not simply to fault the children, because what we're looking at is we're looking at a real addiction. We're looking at neurophysiological addiction. So the brain has been taken over, right, by neurological systems where they're getting an immediate hit. We're getting an answer. We don't have to think. We've got AI. We've got all these methods to get our work done quickly, but maybe not correctly because we're not thinking. So to take this technology away, which could be so helpful, we're also causing everybody to take a step back. We've already had a step back with COVID. We're trying to catch up. It looks like a great thing, but in reality, without restrictions of some sort, they cannot do it by themselves. This is asking an addict to put the needle down.
Yeah.
They cannot do it. They cannot. So it's something where we all really have to kind of understand what is happening, the dramatic nature that it has and it is having. We have to do something. And parents, of course, for them, they're not on the front lines with this. They don't see just what an impact it is having. So it's a really important conversation that we're having, because these academic deficits are not going to go away.
And Kim, what do you think, if you were going to make the policy for your school, what would you have it be for your school?
I would love to be able to have everybody on board, lock them all up, get them all done at break or when you leave. That sort of thing. They just can't be part of it. And the methodologies that we use to get the phones in at any way, it's very creative and very slick.
Yeah, our teachers are like people who, like you said, are like taking the needle away from drug addicts, and that's why, unfortunately, you guys are getting the brunt of all the yelling and unkindness.
And sadly, that is not a tongue-in-cheek statement.
Yes, yeah.
We can look at the brain scans, and I will show the students these are brain scans themselves. So it's not me being mean. It's not being mean, a judger. This is really what's happening, and we would not want that for ourselves.
Yeah.
If we were drinking, Pine Sol, we wouldn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Thanks so much, Kim, for your thoughts and for joining us today.
Have a wonderful.
You too.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Aaron, you're a teacher also. Aaron, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I've been in the public education system for 24 years. and you've seen a dramatic change with the implementation or I guess we call it the evolution of cell phones coming into the classroom. From the obvious things in terms of just distractions from the educational environment, but then you get the sexting and you get the bullying, you get all the issues, the disciplinary issues that come out of cell phone usage. And my issue has always been there's empirical research, as was pointed out earlier. There's empirical research that shows us this is detrimental to students. And we as leaders in the community, if we have this information at our fingertips, why are we not using it to benefit our young people? I teach high school, and why are we not saying like, okay, we know that this is not good, so we have 7.5 hours a day that we can do what we believe is best for young people and go, we're going to keep this out of your hands because we know the impact that this has. I was talking to someone earlier, and I was mentioning the idea that, like, I don't know if your listeners have seen Social Dilemma. It's a Netflix piece about the impact of social media. And just especially, I actually show it at the beginning of the year to my students because I'm in social sciences. And I show it because one of the impacts that is just saddening is what it's done with young teens, young teen girls, specifically their suicide rates. And just the direct connection when the suicide rates have increased. And it's right alongside with kind of the evolution and the cell phones in the classroom. And it's just, for us to say to know these things, but yet not to act on it is mind boggling to me, especially as, those who are in the field and see the impact. And society, people, kind of knee-jerk reaction. Society's going to go on. Like, society has gone on thousands of years without cell phones. And it's going to go on until the Lord returns, until the Lord tarries here, and we're going to be all right. Like, public education has endured without cell phones. In terms of parents, feeling like they need to have contact with their students. I mean, look, I know it may be a little archaic, but look, there's other ways of communicating. I mean, if you need to call the school, that's what used to happen. You call the school office, they get a hold of your student. You can use email. Anything that kids need to be able to do that is with an electronic device or they can do on their computer, But these are, and then a lot of the schools, like our school, had put in a policy. Finally, this past year, they put in a policy. It used to be just at the discretion of the teacher. Well, then you have different teachers having different policies.
So they're going class to class, and it changes.
Yes, absolutely. I have a phone caddy. Kids come in, students come in, they put them in the phone caddy. And that's how, obviously, they're assigned a phone caddy. They put it in there. And it just got to the point in terms of, like, other teachers not having the same policy and from the top administration, them just saying, well, you just do what you want. That just doesn't work. It has to come from the top. And then the school district said, okay, we're going to go ahead and implement a policy, but they can have them during the halls and they can have them in study halls. It doesn't work. The bottom line is when the kids walk into school, the cell phone needs to be under lock, in box, out of their hands. And I'm telling you, in terms of the educational environment and the betterment and student learning, I can't tell you how much better. At least I would believe. I wouldn't know for sure. At least I believe when I'm able to keep that in tabs in my classroom, it's better. But I just think it would be a positive. I just don't understand. As far as this law is concerned, too, I agree with you guys. What's it really doing? I mean, it may be empowering the school, but like I could see our schools saying, "Oh yeah, we have a policy in place." Well, we have a policy, but you're not really enforcing it. And you're not doing anything about it.
Exactly.
So how good is it then? I mean. And I agree with the idea. You want to give, we got over 600 public school districts in our state. You want to give them the flexibility to kind of determine what's best, at home for them. But it's incumbent upon the leadership of the individual school districts, their boards, their superintendents, say, look, this is bad. We know this is bad. We're not going to put drugs in the hands of our students and just say, let them, figure it out. Like that doesn't work.
Yeah, and this is the same. We're letting our kids, have these in their hands at all times, and they're getting that constant dopamine hit of scrolling on TikTok.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts, Aaron. If you could stay on the line, I'm going to have Daria send you something. So stay on the line. She'll get your address, and we'll send you something. So thanks so much for calling in.
Thank you.
We're up against a break, but right after that, we are with our friend, Dr. Nick Gatzke, and he has an article he wants to talk with us about. It's very interesting. the misunderstood reason millions of Americans stopped going to church. Stay tuned for Dr. Nick Gatzke.
As the saying goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, Dr. Tony Evans says that's especially true in the spiritual arena. He explains with the help of this example as we spend 2 minutes with Tony.
Like the man who was outside of the White House when crying. He was a soldier. He was crying, and a boy came and said, "What's wrong, mister?" He said, "I need to see President Lincoln, but I can't get through. I'm just a common guy, but only the president can solve my problem." The little boy took the man by the hand and said, "Would you come with me?" And he walked him. He walked right past the gate, right past the Century, right into the White House, right into the Oval Office, and said to President Lincoln, "Dad, this man needs to see you." See, when you know the Son, he cuts through a lot of the stuff so that you now have bold access into the very presence of God. And one of the reasons we stay discouraged is we don't take advantage of the access that we've been given. We're satisfied with cute Christianity, not accessing the throne room of God, which is your right if you know Jesus Christ. That's not just some extra privilege and bonus benefit. It is your God-given right, because Jesus Christ, when the veil was torn, his flesh was ripped, opened up a big door for you to strut your stuff into the presence of God, to lay your pain in the presence of God, because Jesus has opened up access for you there.
Dr. Evans explains this idea in depth in his sermon series, The One Another's, available online at tonyevans.org. And be sure to join us next time for 2 Minutes with Tony.
It's not insurance, and that's a new way of thinking for some families. Christian Healthcare Ministries is a credible way to meet family healthcare costs affordably, biblically, and effectively, whether starting or growing your family. Serving families as a nonprofit healthcare sharing ministry for over 40 years, CHM has offered families the freedom to choose how they would like to meet healthcare costs. Be pleasantly surprised and find answers to your questions at chministries.org/Moody. That's chministries.org/Moody.
If you've been thinking about a career in aviation, consider a Bachelor of Science degree in Missionary Aviation Technology from Moody Bible Institute. Flight majors earn an average of 325 flight hours, including over 100 hours of flight experience in high-performance aircraft. You'll be fully trained to get your private, instrument, and commercial pilot certification immediately after graduation, and you'll have a foundation in Bible and avionics technical training. Visit moody.edu/aviation. That's moody.edu/aviation.
Brian's third grade teacher left us a voicemail.
Please record your message.
I always thought that Brian would be a circus performer or a radio host. At least I got one right.
It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
It's 7:37 on Mornings with Brian. We are with Dr. Nick Gatzke, senior pastor of Old North Church in Canfield. Hi, Dr. Gatzke.
Good morning.
Old church?
It is old, too. Yeah, it's old as well.
Is it? How old is it?
I think 1946, if I remember correctly.
It is old.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not old.
That depends upon who you ask.
Maybe to Daria. But she can't answer right now because she's on the phone. Dr. Gatzke, you brought an article to us, The Misunderstood Reason Millions of Americans Stopped Going to Church.
Yeah, Lauren, one of the things that I like to think about and that our elders like to think about, it's just how the culture is changing around us and what does that mean for church ministry. And it's not a surprise to anybody, I think, that over the course of the last 50 years or more, the landscape has changed very significantly with regard to religion and public religion and the American life. In fact, some statistics tell us that something like 12% of the population, or 40 million Americans, have stopped attending church over the last just 25 years. So just since the turn of the century, 1999, 2000. And that, of course, causes a number of questions. Well, why is that the case? What's happening that has created the most concentrated change in church attendance in the history of the country? And I think that this article, and it's based on a book that was published last year called The Great Dechurching, raises a point that not that many people think about. I think a lot of people think, well, it's because our country is paganizing, or it's because the liberals took over the universities, or a number of reasons like that. But this goes at it from a little different angle.
Yeah, I was starting to think about, well, what do people think? Why are people not going to church anymore? And I think in the book they said that people thought it was religious abuse or, moral corruption, pastors having a moral failure of some kind, and that wasn't the biggest one.
Yeah,
that isn't
right.
the biggest reason they're leaving.
Right, and you could see why those would be big reasons, right? We would all acknowledge that. But the biggest one that this author brings out, and he says it in just very simple terms, the way that American life works isn't designed to prioritize attendance in the local church. And what he means by that is a couple of different things. Number one, that American life, it's not set up in our current time frame to promote mutuality, care, common life. It's designed to maximize individual accomplishment and professional and financial success. That's what American life is generally geared toward. And he uses the term workism as sort of as the term that categorizes or that describes those sorts of things. And I was thinking about that term workism because I think in our culture right now, even that is changing. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on that as well, because there are generational dynamics, I think, when it comes to workism.
Yeah, I think for sure, millennials, maybe not as much, maybe the younger ones, but for sure, Gen Z, they're like, I'm not here to just work. I'm not here to, live my life for this job. And I think that's changing a lot. They don't have loyalty to jobs, whether that's good or bad. There's probably, benefits to that, but also reasons they should maybe be more loyal. But they for sure are not sticking close to jobs as much as the older generations.
Yeah, I think that especially, Gen X especially, which I'd be a part of, would be, would certainly, many would fall into the traps of workism.
Yeah, working 60 plus hours.
Yeah, right. And saying my biggest goals in life are advancement.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily related to the community around me. It's related to myself and to my family and what it gets for my family. And then, millennials sort of fall in between, I think partially depending upon where they fall on the age scale, partially where they fall, on the culture that they grew up in. And then, what we see certainly out of a lot of Gen Zers is that they're much more apt to protect their personal time.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
They don't want it infringed upon. They value it at a different level. And even if it costs them something by way of career, and sometimes they don't, because just by the very nature of being younger, they don't realize what it would cost them by career. But there's benefits and liabilities to both. I think so this author gets to the point that workism for the last number of years has reigned in America. And as a result, the idea of community as a whole, and especially religious community, is just something that doesn't fit well into the rhythm of American life for people who have adopted that dynamic.
Yeah, and I think there's changing, obviously, with Gen Z, but maybe not me, we've brought up Gen Z so much so that we're like, hey, you don't have to care about community. You just have to worry about your individual family. And in life, in Bible times, it is the exact opposite. In the life that we're, striving to live for, they're living in community. They're helping each other out, whether that's your actual family or your church family.
Sure.
And I don't know, how do you see this kind of playing out in your church, the individualism in your church?
Well,
for those who are still going.
Yeah. For some, I mean, it becomes, participating in the life of a local church for some people becomes just the next thing I have to do. And I have a large list of things that I have to do this week, and I want to do them all because they're all important to me. And so, on Monday, I have to get the kid to piano practice. On Tuesday night, there's a baseball game. On Wednesday, there's tutoring. On Thursday, there's another baseball game. On Friday, we finally get movie night as a family. On Saturday morning, there's golf. On Sunday, there's church. And it's like boom, 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 down the line. The rubber band is taut.
Yeah.
And if you have kids that are in travel sports, it's like doubly taut.
Oh, yeah.
Because the demands of that now are significantly higher. And so it just feels like the next thing that you have to do. But the point of the article is this, is I think that what if instead of accommodating the busyness of American life and therefore asking less and demanding less of Christians in the life of a local congregation, what if the church actually does the opposite and says, we're actually going to demand more because we believe that actually all of the things that, many of which are good things that we have in this rat race of life, but we see that they actually produce things like anxiety and loneliness and uncertainty and isolation and depression. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people. And so what if actually the answer is to, instead of accommodate the individualism and demand less, we demand more and create more communal environments in the life of a local church, which will in some ways change the way that many American churches look, but will produce something in the person that is much more valuable.
Yeah, I want to get more into that. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, how can we as churches value church more and ask more of people while not trying to, go against the grain and make them forget their families or forget youth sports? We'll come right back in just a minute.
God is for me. It's the most important message to plant in your child's heart. We encourage our kids to learn algebra, science, athletics, all noble and good things. But most important, they should know what is true about God, what He has done and is doing for them. God is for Us is a new kids' Bible study from Romans 8, one of the most beloved chapters of the Bible.
Order your copy of God is for Us at moodybooks.org.
This is David Harms with the Ministry India Partners, and I have walked through the red light districts of Mumbai, India numerous times, and trust me, it is dark. Young girls have no joy in their eyes because they feel they have no future, and they'll be stuck in the trade for the rest of their lives. But once they get into a safe house run by India Partners, well, just listen. That is God at work, which is why for the last year we've shared powerful stories of safety, rescue, and care happening through the India Partner safe houses. These girls are safe from harm, well cared for, and introduced to the transforming and healing love of Jesus. Learn more about the power of rescue and care in a safe house at indiapartners.org/Moody.
Lauren Daigle will be in.
At Mornings with Brian, we discuss life's deeper questions without taking ourselves too seriously. Tune in for honest conversations intended to inspire lasting change. Start your mornings with Brian, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on 103.3 FM.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
7:48 on Mornings with Brian. If you heard that, that's right. We have 5 pairs of tickets to see Lauren Daigle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to win them, you can. So text Lauren to 440-546-2255. No, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Lauren Daigle. Text Lauren to 440-546-2255 to enter to win a pair of tickets to see Lauren Daigle on May 30th right here in Cleveland. We're here with Dr. Nick Gatzke. We've been talking about the misunderstood reason millions of Americans stopped going to church. And can you summarize what that reason is, Dr. Gatzke?
Yeah, generally speaking, that the American life is so busy that church participation becomes just another thing to do, and therefore becomes devalued because it looks like and feels like all the other things that we do.
Yeah. And the book is called The Great De-Churching. It came out last year, I think you said. So your suggestion is, instead of saying, fine, you don't only have to come to church for an hour and a half on Sundays, that's fine, we'll just give in to you wanting to do youth sports all the time or whatever. You're saying maybe we need to ask more of our congregations.
Absolutely. And the author brings up this point, but I completely agree with it, that instead of just saying, okay, let's make this the lowest common denominator, let's make this as easy as possible, let's say, no, actually, let's go the other direction. And there's a theological and there's a practical / social reason why, right? If we believe that the Bible commands us to gather together as Christians, to sit under the teaching of God's word and to encourage each other, which it does command very clearly in Hebrews 10:24 and 25, do not forsake the gathering, instead build each other up and encourage each other in good works, is a summary of that. That's commanded of us as believers, because God knows we need that. Then instead of coming to, a 60 to 75 minute service, hearing, receiving, giving, and leaving, what does it look like to live in a Christian community with people? And I think some of the practical ways that plays itself out that we see we've had a drastic change of in the last number of years is that I think that we need to reprioritize church membership as important. That to be a member of a local church is a commitment that you make to each other to grow in Christ together. We prioritize that at our church and have seen a lot of people respond in a society that's anti-membership, anti-commitment. People are saying, yes, I want commitment because this is important. I need this. I need to know that if I go wayward, someone is going to come after me.
Yeah.
I need to know that if my spouse dies, someone's going to help and care for me. I need to know that when I'm having trouble with raising my children, because we all have trouble raising our children, that there's going to be a community of people around me that's going to come around and say, we are going to help raise your children in the Lord. And that comes with a commitment. And we call that commitment, of course, church membership, to participate together, to give together, to support together, and to, most importantly, encourage each other. So that's, I think, one thing. I think the other thing that I would really encourage people on is that the culture of a church, of any church, in some ways is set on a trajectory by its leaders, by its pastor or pastors or elders. But you know where it's played out? It's played out among every man and woman and boy and girl who participates in the life of that church. And so if you say, my church isn't communal enough, the opportunity is for you to be the catalyst to start exercising that type of hospitality and community by spending time together, by having people to your house, by trying to gather people together for certain types of things, because you never get the benefit of community unless you actually engage in the initial kind of hard work of it.
And Dr. Gatzke, that means we have to give up all of our stuff, all of our extracurricular activities. What do you say to someone who's like, but all my things, all my activities?
Yeah, I would say, number one, no, it's not a zero-sum game, right? Like you can still do a lot of things and still be part of a vibrant Christian community. But I would also say it will test your priorities.
Yeah.
It's gonna call you to prioritize things that are more important, and will cause you to answer the question, do I really think they're more important? Like, do I really think that it's more important for me to grow in Christ with other people than X, Y, or Z activity that I do on, a certain time of the week? Because we all only have a limited amount of time, and the rubber band only stretches so far before we snap.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, that's just, that's just part of being an adult, to be honest with you. Like we got to prioritize all kinds of things all the time. So instead of pretending we can do it all, let's actually say what's the most important. I'm going to organize my life around that.
And I think we can all confidently say walking into church, sitting down, and then leaving and walking out you're not actually participating in church. You're not participating in a community. You're not being built up. You're not building others up. You're kind of just checking something off a box.
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I mean, I would say that when you participate in the Sunday service at your local church, your presence is encouraging to the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you sing out loud instead of just look back at the music leader with a glare is first and foremost worshipful to God, because it's a way of us giving him something, giving him praise. But it's also a way of encouraging other people around you as you sing the truths of Scripture to each other. You listening to the sermon intently next to the person who's not like you, who's also listening to the sermon intently, is a way in which you, through common experience, are hearing the Lord speak through his Holy Spirit by his word, and therefore are growing together. But that's not where community ends. It's not just sit next to each other, don't talk to each other, have a shared experience. There is a relational dynamic that you mentioned, a number of minutes ago, Lauren, that I think we need to recover more intentionally. But it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Do you think we also would have to start changing the way we go about going to church? So sometimes we go to churches that are like 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
Or more, 45. And if we're going to start actively being a part of a community, does it mean we need to find a church that's closer to home?
I think that's ideal, yes. I mean, I think it's not always possible, right? Sometimes we don't live near a church that preaches the Bible. It might be a church, but they're not a gospel preaching church or whatever. And so, or we, are particularly drawn to a certain type of ministry. Yeah. But I do think that generally speaking, it's a healthier dynamic to live closer to your local church. And actually, we're seeing more and more people are moving to areas to be not in a certain neighborhood, not close to their workplace, not even sometimes a school system, but not always. Sometimes people are moving to certain areas to be by their church.
That's great.
And that becomes a stated priority for them. We've seen that here at our church and plenty of other places as well. Which I would say, if you're moving for a job transfer, the first thing you should look for is where's the local church that I want to be a part of, and move near that. I think that's super helpful. I think the other thing that it might require us to change, and we say this all the time, is come early and stay late.
Okay.
So if your church service starts at 9:00, come at 8:30 and just wander around and talk to people. If your church service ends at 10 or 10:30, stay until 11 and just hang out and talk to people. And then maybe you go get a lunch, or maybe, your day goes on and you have to do your own things or whatever. But just creating those 15 to 30-minute buffers on each side of the Sunday morning activities helps create that relational stickiness that's so important.
And what would you say for someone who maybe has a hard time opening up to other people? And so thinking about staying at church longer or coming earlier and being open with other people feels scary. What do you say to someone who's having a hard time being known, maybe?
Yeah. We hear this all the time. And, there's no magic wand or secret formula, is there? There really isn't. And at some point, I would say to that person one of two things. Either come on that particular day with a set of just a couple of simple questions that you can be courageous enough to ask another person to start a conversation. Simple. What was the most important thing you did this week? What was the hardest thing that you did this week? Or just something, a couple of set questions that can start a conversation. Or if somebody's maybe a little bit even too shy to do that in the context of a large group of people, find one or two people that you can ask to a cup of coffee or to a meal or whatever over to your house, to make the larger church smaller, and therefore maybe less intimidating. But it takes two to tango. It really does. You can't just expect people to come to you, and if you don't ever go to anybody and say, well, nobody knows me at my church, nobody likes me, they're not very friendly, but did you ever ask anybody over to your house for a cup of coffee?
Right.
It takes two to tango.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know Daria just recently found a church, and I'm still looking for a church, and it's the worst.
It's really hard.
It's the worst just trying to find a new church, especially I was at a church for a very long time, so the whole process of finding a church it's fun, but it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And, that sense of pain or loss that you felt from your last congregation that you moved away from, that actually points to there was something really healthy there.
Yep.
It should be painful for you to leave your church family in some ways, because you are engaging with these people in the most important things. And so, in one sense, it speaks well to the history of your experience. In another sense, it's super hard. And but it's worth it, right? It's worth it to keep trying, to keep finding that right community, to keep finding a place where they preach the Bible and you can grow with your family. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dr. Nick Gatzke. Thanks for being with us. We always enjoy when you're with us. If people want to learn more about Old North Church, where can they go?
You can go to oldnorthchurch.org or our radio program, abetterword.org, and we'd love to see you there.
And A Better Word is played here on WCRF Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. So if you're up, you better listen. Turn us on and listen to Dr. Gatzke. Thanks so much, Dr. Gatzke, for being with us.
Yeah, great to be with you guys. Have a great day.
You too. All right. One more time. Lauren Daigle.
Yes.
Shares
your first name.
Yes. You're coming to see me. Just kidding. You're coming to see Lauren Daigle. If you'd like to enter to win a pair of tickets to see Lauren Daigle, text the name Lauren to 440-546-2255. That's the word name, Lauren, to 440-546-2255. We're about to get to Ron's news, but after that, guys, I'm new. And I have to get to know my neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to.
That's also hard.
I guess it's the same thing as getting to know people at church.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an article from The Atlantic talking about how to get to know people and why you should get to know your neighbors. After Ron's news, get to know your neighbors.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
Israel is pushing deeper into the Gaza city of Rafah to fight Hamas. It's 8:01. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Israel Defense Forces say it's conducting precise operations in part to avoid civilian casualties. They've killed at least 10 Hamas fighters, according to the IDF, which issued new evacuation orders for the city on Saturday. A Highland Heights man has been sentenced to 15 years in prison after a nationwide conspiracy to engage in the sexual exploitation of children. Authorities say 34-year-old David Peace was part of a group who forced girls as young as 11 years old to perform acts in front of web cameras. And in Steubenville, historic Fort Steuben has announced plans to partner with the University of Akron to establish the country's first museum dedicated to surveying. Fort Steuben was established in 1787 with the original purpose of providing protection to the country's first surveyors as they set their sights on the Northwest Territory. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
Moody Radio is thankful for King and Country.
But look around you. Your family, your faith, they're not in the way. They are the way.
From the creators of Jesus Revolution comes the true story.
It's going to be dangerous and scary, and giving up, it's not an option.
The story of one family's journey from down under to center stage. Unsung Hero, a For King and Country film starring Candace Cameron Bure and Terry O'Quinn. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. In theaters April 26th. More information available at unsunghero.movie.
In sports, the Cavaliers fell to the Celtics 109-102 in Game 4, and they now trail the Eastern semifinal series 3-1 and therefore are facing elimination. Come on, Cavs, you could do it. The Guardians shut out the Rangers 7-0, and the Pirates edged the Brewers 8-6. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Partly sunny this morning, then becoming cloudy later. There's a chance of showers today, even a chance of thunderstorms this afternoon. It's going to be cooler with our high temperature in the upper 60s. And at last check, we had clear skies in Cleveland where it's 64 degrees. Akron and Canton cleared up as well, 60 degrees there. Lorraine and Elyria, clear skies and 61 degrees.
It's time for your moron moment.
In a first ever human clinical trial, an mRNA cancer vaccine developed at the University of Florida successfully reprogrammed patients' immune systems to fiercely attack glioblastoma, the most aggressive and lethal brain tumor. While too early in the trial to assess the clinical effects of the vaccine, the 4 adult patients survived longer than expected. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:04 with Moody Radio News. I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine studio, it's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Do you ever wonder why success can feel empty? Why is more money still never enough? Or why relationships can be so hard? Try something different today. On your way to work, turn on your radio and join our conversations about life's deeper questions. And don't worry, we drop the pretense and don't take ourselves too seriously. But like you, we're looking for transformation in life.
When you allow someone to fully know you and still love you.
Join us for Mornings with Brian, weekdays starting at 6 a.m. on 103.3 FM.
A teens community is on Snapchat or on TikTok. And so how would you go about like having both? Like I would want my child to have their community. I don't want them to feel left out. I want them to feel like they're connected. But also there is so much harm in social media. How can we have both?
Honestly, when you give your child Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is you're going to give them in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, whenever you're going to do that, does that automatically, magically make them so happy and so loved? I mean, it really, truly, if we're honest, it does the opposite, that all of a sudden now it opens up this whole world of like, oh my word, I thought I was good looking, but now I see like a gazillion people who are better looking than me. Is that trait of drama and pain and constantly measuring themselves, is that pain worth it?
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters.
No.
We'll hear them later.
No, you guys be quiet. It's my time. This is Mornings with Brian. Brian's out this week. He's on vacation, taking some good rest time for himself, which he deserves. But Ron is here, and Daria is here, and I'm Lauren, and I'm also here. And we're glad you're here with us. Yeah. So before the break, I was talking about how I need to get to know my neighbors. Mm-hmm. Or so says this podcast. It says I need to go get to know my neighbors. Ron, you seem like you know your neighbors pretty well.
I have had to restart because 2 of my neighbors moved.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the one next door, I've met he and his very young son. And my wife has met her, the wife there.
Yeah.
And across the street, they're just moved in yesterday, I think.
Oh, wow. But very new.
Dana's got a plan.
What's her plan?
Of course she does.
Yes, she does. She's the best.
She's bought these big plastic tubs of party mix. And so that'll be, like you bake cookies or whatever and go over. She plans we'll go over and we're going to give them an index card with each of our names and phone numbers so that
that's so good.
If they want to call or text about anything. Because things happen, we had a house in our neighborhood that caught fire.
Oh, wow.
And I would never have known the guy's phone number,
Yeah, to check on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the other neighbors saw the fire and was able to call them after they called 911. And so they had been out to dinner and were able to get home quick to watch their house burn.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's a great idea, giving out your phone number. Daria, how do you feel about your neighbors?
There is one set of neighbors that we do everything in our power to avoid. They are those kinds of neighbors.
Worst.
They're bad neighbors. But on the other side of us, we haven't been formally introduced, but their kids love our cats. So they get so excited. We let our cats out in our fenced-in yard, and so they get really excited. And so just the other day, these kids were on their trampoline, and they're talking to my cat. So I picked her up and let them see her over the fence, and they enjoyed that. And that was a sweet moment.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, on one side, we have an elderly woman. She's lived in her house for 50 years, and she's getting ready to move, which is sad because I'm like, well, now I'm gonna have to start over.
Yeah,
the little work that I've done, I'm gonna start over. And then on the other side is a middle-aged family. They have teenagers, and they're probably in their early 50s or something like that. A lot of the people on our street have lived there forever, and we're like the newbies.
Yeah.
And for a while, so dramatic from December, the day after Christmas, until sometime last month, we had the paramedics at our house 3 times.
Get to know your neighbors well that way.
Yeah. And I was like, man, no one has asked us if we're okay. And we've had the paramedics at our house 3 times, and no one's asked us if we're okay. They haven't come over to check on us.
Wow.
You would think one time you'd I wonder if they're okay. But that 3 times?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't want to be nosy. I've lived in neighborhoods where it's a public attraction if the ambulance shows up.
Exactly.
And that's rude too.
Yeah. And so I was feeling kind of sad, wow, they don't even care about us. They don't even care about the paramedics came to our house 3 times. But then I had to be well, what have you done?
Right.
To get to know them. Why is it all on them to get to know you? You know what I mean?
Just like Dr. Gatzke was just saying.
Exactly. It shouldn't all be on them to come get to know us. And maybe it's because it's been the winter since we've been there, and so we've been cooped up inside, and I had a baby, so I really wasn't going outside because I'm not trying to get him all wrapped up to go outside. Anyways, so maybe now that we're outside more often, it'll be more organic. I'm not sure. But I was feeling sad, and then I had to really check myself and be you need to chill. So this article from, what is it? The Atlantic, How to Talk to People, How to Know Your Neighbors. A commitment to knowing our neighbors can help us feel more connected and may allow us to experiment with the feeling of being known. Kind of like what we were just talking about with Dr. Gatzke.
Okay.
So we're going to get into this in just a minute, but I want to hear from you. Text or call 440-546-2255. Let us know your experience with your neighbors. What's it like getting to know your neighbors? Have you found good community with them? Have you allowed yourself to be known, or are you kind of just staying cooped up inside and then judging their Christmas trees from inside your windows? Text or call 440-546-2255. Let us know What is your commitment in your relationship with your neighbors?
You are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity, today I'm making my final credit card payment.
Before I came to you, I was in a constant state of anxiety and panic, but now there is hope for my family's financial future.
Working with Trinity made me understand that I'm not alone.
You really do help people.
Your kindness will never be forgotten.
Without Trinity's support, I would not have achieved my lifelong goal of becoming debt-free.
We saved a lot on interest and penalties, of course, but the reward was the gift of human kindness.
Trinity has carried me through a very difficult time in my life. You're amazing.
I used to feel so anxious and hopeless. Now I feel grace and peace.
God bless Trinity as you continue to help others become debt-free.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-659-9838. That's 1-800-659-9838.
Moody Radio is thankful for listeners and support from businesses like Duma Meats and Farm Market. Duma Meats and Farm Market, supporting Moody Radio in Cleveland and surrounding areas. More information about Duma Meats and Farm Market is at dumameats.com.
Your day is starting off strong with Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Jeremy Camp on Mornings with Brian. Daria and Ron are here as well. Brian is out today. Well, the whole week.
Yeah.
We've been talking about how to talk to people, how to know your neighbors. And we could also make this extended into how to know your church community after our conversation with Dr. Nick Gatzke earlier today. It's hard sometimes to put yourself out there.
Right.
And to get to know people around you, whether that's a church community or your neighbors. I'm going through both. Mm-hmm. Daria, maybe you more so as like a church community as you're getting to know a new church and new people. What are your tips and what have you find helpful of getting to know people at church recently?
You have to go to things. You can't just show up on Sunday morning and then leave immediately. Like if your church is having an event or a Bible study, life group, whatever, you need to get involved. That is the only way you're actually going to meet anybody.
Yeah. And then how do you take it further than that? Dr. Gatzke, said have some questions ready. What would your advice be for like the next step?
Just be available. Just go up and introduce yourself to people. It's going to require being a little bit vulnerable and a little bit uncomfortable. But that's how you meet really great people.
Yeah, you're good at that, Daria. Putting yourself out there. Ron, go ahead.
There's nothing wrong with small talk.
Yeah.
A lot of people diss small talk and say, I can't stand it. But it's a great way to break the ice. If they're wearing a sports jersey or shirt acknowledging sports in some way, you can bring that up and go, oh, I see you're a Browns fan.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting for the upcoming season?
Yeah.
Or Guardians, how they doing? You think we're going to do well this season? We seem to be on a hot streak. Can we keep it up?
Mm-hmm.
And that gives a bridge for some conversation, and then you've got something to build on. But don't feel like, well, if I talk to this person, they've immediately got to become my best friend. And
don't do that. You'll scare people away.
Yeah, one of us is going to have to mentor the other, and we're committed. It's like a new marriage. No, you're just saying hi.
You can have like more than acquaintances with people, but like not quite friendships. Like you can have those. Jobs are also a great fallback. Family, kids, we all have those things in common.
Yeah. What do you think is the benefit to getting to know your neighbors? Why should we do that?
One, you might need help, or they might need help, and you could be the help. Moving furniture is a common thing that my neighbors and I have done for each other. Also, if your kids are of similar ages, they're likely to interact, if not actually play together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good to know the parents so that you can judge accordingly. If they, do I want my kids to go over to their house? Well, I don't know. Are they good people? Well, if I've been in their house, I know them a little bit. I know whether they're, leaving intravenous needles around the house or loaded weapons, or if they, practice good parenting tips.
Yes.
So, I think that those are a couple of reasons.
Yeah, I grew up on a cul-de-sac, so we were all pretty close-knit. There was one couple across the street that kind of became like surrogate grandparents because they didn't have any grandkids and their son was estranged. So that to this day is that the husband unfortunately passed away. It's been a really special relationship. And we were the youngest ones, to my parents, the youngest ones on the block by far. So the older people definitely relied on my mom a lot. But she had some really great relationships where she was willing to step in and help take care of some people if family wasn't immediately available.
Yeah. Yeah, Eddie has helped our neighbor because she's elderly, and he's been able to help like when there's snow or other kind of cleanup duties. She has a lot of people in the neighborhood that know her, and I think some family, so they come over to help her probably every day. But yeah, Eddie's been able to help her just like, well, we have a shared driveway, so if he's, cleaning our side, he's may as well clean hers as well. I remember one time when we were living at my parents' house this last year, one of the neighbors to the left, I think they were both retired. And in the summertime, I'm outside. Number one, because my child needs to get outside for fresh air, but also to just like run around.
So he's not destroying the walls.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I just like love sitting in the sun while he was running around. And so we were outside almost every day. And so we'd see our neighbor, come drive out of her driveway and drive back in. And Trey's a pretty friendly guy. And so my son Trey, he's pretty friendly. And he would just like wave to her and smile, whatever. And he did it like every day. And one day she came over and she had a little gift bag. And she said to me, the other day, I was just having a really rough day. And your son just did as he always did. He just waved and said hi.
Aww.
And she said, for whatever reason that day, it just meant the world to me. And it just really brightened up my day. And I know you guys are always out here and it wasn't unusual or uncommon for you, but just like his, he was like 2 at the time. Just his kindness, just to smile and wave at somebody meant the world to me. And she brought him over a little activity book.
Aw, that's
kind of
so
just
sweet.
as a thank you. And so I think even just in those small things where we don't even see it or we don't even know it, it's just what we're always doing. Kind of just like the ministry of presence. Like we're just there and we can wave and we can smile and hopefully help someone's day.
As opposed to just sit self-absorbed and try to ignore that there's someone on the other side of the driveway.
Yeah, it's like we know such intimate details about our neighbors. Like, I know you didn't take out your trash today. I know you didn't roll your trash to the curb today. But then when we see them in person, you don't say hi or you don't like wave or smile. It's like we try to act like we don't know these intimate details about their life. So I guess my question would be is, how can we as Christians be better neighbors to our direct neighbors, those across the street? How can we be better neighbors to show Jesus to our neighbors, but without, shoving it down their throats?
Yeah, it's so easy to, I guess, be judgmental. My neighbors were probably all driving by thinking, is he really not going to mow for the entire month of May? And
I probably thought about us too. Yeah,
I finally got to it. But you can drive by and you're like, oh, it's that house. The one that they try to keep their garage door down because it is so jam packed with stuff, or the ones who have a paint color scheme that just doesn't match with anything else in the world.
Yes.
And so you make fun of them, but if you make friends with people, you're less likely to do that, and they're less likely to do that about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know what you guys think, our listeners. How can we be better neighbors as those who follow Christ? How can we show our neighbors who Jesus is without, having directly to preach at them through your windows? What are the simple acts that we can do to get our neighbors to know Jesus through our actions? Text or call 440-546-2255. We had someone that texted in and said, we got to know more of our neighbors during the pandemic. We have a deeper relationship with many now. It is wonderful. We help one another and care for each other. One neighbor lost his wife during the pandemic, and we have him over periodically for coffee and muffins just to talk. He said we are his only friends that he can talk with. My husband helps him some of our single neighbors with chores as well. And then we also get to talk about our faith.
Right.
Daria, what do you think? How can we be better neighbors to show our neighbors who Jesus is without, having to go preach at them?
We kind of talked about this yesterday. I think just be Christ. People are going to notice that something is different about you. You don't have to be in their face with it, but just having those relationships, carrying yourself in a certain way. And then if the moment is natural, then you can bring it up, or if they have questions. But I think you're just a great advertisement for Jesus just by how you conduct yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also for us as new first-time homeowners, there's so many things we don't know. And Eddie has, some people he can ask. He asks Brian for help every once in a while, but also you see your neighbors every day outside.
Right.
He could just easily, go over there and strike up a conversation and ask them about, how do you, I don't know, Ron, what do you do at houses? I don't know. How do you fix this thing? Obviously, I don't do that at
how
my
do you
house.
keep your gutters looking so clean?
Yes.
Mine have mold growing. How do you do that? And then they feel like, oh, thank you for noticing.
Yes, exactly. Or you can do like Dana does and make baked goods or some Chex Mix.
Yeah.
Party mix, is that what you said?
Yeah.
These are good ideas. And now I just need to how do you reverse it as the person who's new? How do you get to know your neighbors? And because I guess I could take baked goods to them.
Sure.
But it's not the stereotype of you're new, so I'm going to bring you baked goods.
I mean, I think what you talked about with just you and your son being outside. You're going to cross paths with these people at some point. Just, hello, how you doing? And then you can escalate it from there to actually having conversations.
Yeah, we're quite the spectacle. The other day I was mowing the lawn in the front so everyone could see me, and I had my 7-month-old baby strapped in a carrier on me.
Look at you, Mom.
Facing
Way
outwards.
to go.
It was like arms and legs are all flailing about, and I'm like mowing. And so many people passed, and I was like, wow, I probably look like such a loser, but that's fine.
You look like a boss mom.
Yeah, I had the time to get it done. Eddie was working, so didn't need to wait until afterwards.
One thing that we did a couple years, I can't remember, they had a clever name for it, but it was around Halloween. And you put like some treats, whether it's candy or whatever, into a bag, and you basically ding-dong ditch it at a neighbor's house. And so you just give them that bag and run and hide, you know? And so it's like a random act of kindness.
Yeah, I would love to run and hide. That would be the best part about it. I don't want them to find me.
My youngest son was young, like maybe 6 when we did this, and I told him just ring the doorbell and then run and hide behind their cars because you know, he couldn't get all the way across the street, you know. And so he hid, and the guy came out, found that, and he's looking around, and he starts walking around. I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to get busted. So I started walking over to meet him.
But at least it was treats.
Yeah.
It wasn't scary stuff.
Yeah.
You could ding-dong ditch with worse stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I could give you examples, but
no thanks.
Not for this station.
So just some food for thought. Get to know your neighbors. And by food for thought for you, I mean mostly for me.
Mm-hmm.
And Daria, as you find a new house, as you're looking around.
Yeah, we're both new to the area.
Yeah. Get to know your neighbors. You can show Jesus to your neighbors just through simple acts of kindness, like ding-dong ditching with treats or smiles or waves from your children. So those are just some things I'm thinking about today. After this break, we're back with Kathy Nagel of Abigail Ministries. And we'll talk with her. How can family members help those who are going through domestic abuse?
Welcome to today's encouragement from Our Daily Bread. I'm Kirsten Holmberg, and I titled our reading Joy and Wisdom. Sweetly fragrant cherry tree blossoms flood Japan with exquisite pale and vibrant pinks every spring, delighting the senses of residents and tourists alike. The short-lived nature of the blossoms cultivates a keen awareness in the Japanese to savor the beauty and scent while they linger. They call this deliberate enjoyment of something that will change quickly mono no owari. As humans, it's understandable that we'd want to seek and prolong feelings of joy. Yet the reality that life is riddled with hardship means that we must cultivate the ability to view both pain and pleasure through a lens of faith in a loving God. We needn't be overly pessimistic, nor should we fashion ourselves an unrealistically sunny outlook on life. The book of Ecclesiastes offers a helpful model for us. Though this book is sometimes thought to be a catalog of negative statements, the same King Solomon who wrote that everything is meaningless also encouraged his readers to find joy in the simple things in life, saying there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Joy comes when we ask God to help us know wisdom and learn to observe all that God has done in both beautiful seasons and in difficult ones, knowing that neither is permanent on this side of heaven. Today's encouragement was provided by Our Daily Bread Ministries.
God's Word says a lot about music. From creation to the book of Revelation, you'll find songs, lyrics, songwriters, voices, and instruments. This month, join Today in the Word and our author Brian Lee for a devotional titled, Sing to the Lord, Music in the Bible. To get it, download the free app or go to todayintheword.com. Todayintheword.com,
How do we give generously as Christians? And how do we help our kids learn biblical generosity? Join us as we learn from this week's guest, Dr. Greg Quiggle, on how to talk about generosity in a biblical way.
The Car Seat Questions Podcast. New episodes every Wednesday on YouTube and every podcast platform.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That's Isabel Davis on Mornings with Brian. We're glad you're here. Daria's here. Ron's here. And I'm Lauren, and I'm here. Brian is not. He's on vacation. He will be back next Monday. We're glad he can take some time to himself. Today, we're joined by Kathy Nagel. She's a licensed professional clinical counselor from Abigail Ministries. Hi, Kathy. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here.
Today, you wanted to talk with us of how to help a friend or a family member who is in an abusive or emotionally destructive relationship. And we talk a lot about helping women get out of those relationships, but it can also be a a pretty big feat for those around them. How can I help without causing further damage?
Right. It's first thing is it really requires a lot of patience because the person in the relationship may not even realize the extent of the abuse because they are in denial, or they may not even be sharing what all is going on because of embarrassment or fear.
Yeah, and if you were to see that in one of your friends or a family member, is it okay to like call it out to show them what's going on?
Yes, but it's important. There are some definite things to remember when doing that. One is to be gentle because if you become very forceful, they're likely to recoil and not share with you. And so that would be one thing to consider, that you have to be patient because the person at one point might share some pretty ugly behavior that's going on. And then when you bring it up again, they may kind of excuse it. So it just requires a lot of persistence and patience on the part of a friend or family member to bring the truth to light. Another thing to think about is to not attack the oppressor, but to just attack the behavior.
That's hard.
In other words, yes, it is, because the person listening or observing this is really usually a friend or family member that just is very upset about everything that's happening to their the one they care for, and they are likely to want to just dismiss the aggressor. But the idea is to identify specifically the behavior so that it's objective, and the victim is more likely to continue to share with you.
Do you think that, so we know you've talked to us about the cycle that a lot of abusive relationships go through, and they'll have a cycle of like love bombing where it all looks good and it feels good and everything's going well, and then shortly thereafter it's going to go back into an abusive cycle. Was there a best kind of time in that cycle to try to talk to someone about it?
Yes, definitely the love bombing time. Often the friend will disappear because they're so pulled back into the web of the oppressor that they just kind of take a step away from all their other relationships because they're so thankful to have it be calm or even good during that period. So I think the best time in the relationship would be when things are starting to deteriorate, or when it's in that cooling off period after an explosion, because during the intense time, they may be likely to not share because they may be embarrassed, or they just may be fearful. So it's better to bring it up when it's just like with any conversation, not in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. And do you have any
tips? So that they can process it a little more clearly.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on how do you bring that up to someone, like specific language, or even if you were to give like a sentence or a paragraph to say to someone who's trying to help a friend who's in an abusive relationship, like what should they say?
Well, they should say they could say that sounds like it's difficult, or I've noticed that you are not doing some of the things that you really seem to enjoy in the past, or I've noticed lately you canceled unexpectedly when we were going out, and I'm not upset with you, but I'm just wondering what's going on that might cause that. Or you could say, you just seem down. Is there something going on at home that is bothering you, that you're worried about? Just gently prodding the person is the safest way and the most productive way to get some response that's truthful and allowing the individual to be vulnerable. If you start in by, saying this is what you should do, that's definitely not going to work because they're already being told what to do by their oppressor. So you really should try to do that. And also avoid minimizing her abuse under any circumstances. If she does say something, don't say, oh, yeah, well, sometimes just because it's awkward or we're uncomfortable, we might say, yeah, everybody gets into those kinds of difficulties sometimes. Or my spouse has a temper or whatever. But this is abusive, a continual pattern of abusive behavior, of belittling and shaming and disrespecting, and that is something to just gently start to say, do you think that this is a pattern in his behavior? And also to connect her with other people that might be able to help her. You could mention that you've heard on the radio about Abigail Ministries, and that might be a website or a Facebook page that you want to check out, just to see if you're suspecting that this is problematic or it might be abusive. You could do that. Look some things up. Or you could have looked up some things about emotional abuse ahead of time and say, at one time I was in a relationship that was like this, or I knew a friend that was, and I remember hearing, and then talk about some of the things that you read.
Mm-hmm. If you maybe are suspecting that your friend or a family member is in an abusive relationship, what are some of the first things that a friend or a family member should do? Is it observation? Is it research? Just what are some of those first steps to do if you think that your friend is in an abusive relationship?
I would say to observe it and then gently start to introduce the subject. Like, how are things going at home? I would use your own observations of the individual without making her defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, if things aren't going well at home, you might say, you never talk about your husband. How are things going? Something like that. I would just try to be a listening ear, and whatever you do to believe her, because if anything, victims are likely to minimize what's going on. So whatever she tells you is probably a much more gentle version of what's actually happening than what she's reporting.
Yeah.
And understanding that is helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So be a listening ear and believe what they have to say. Probably those two of the top things to do for someone. Any other tips for someone who is a family member or a friend of someone who's in an abusive relationship?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the beginning of that.
Any other tips for people who are friends or a family member of someone who's in an abusive relationship?
Well, don't make excuses for the abuser. Don't try to soften the tension of the conversation by minimizing. It's a pretty important thing. And research some resources for them. Like, get online yourself and look up Abigail Ministries or Abigail's Facebook page, or just Google abusive relationships and see what comes up, because the physical abuse is obvious, but emotional and psychological abuse is just as harmful or more so. And that is a little bit more difficult to define, and having a good grasp of it would help you to pinpoint the situation that she's in and be able to express some examples of how that's abusive.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks so much, Kathy. If you are listening and this resonates with you for a family member or a friend or for yourself, please get help. Please reach out to Abigail Ministries. Kathy and her team would love to be able to minister to you and help you to kind of get out of that relationship and get out of that abusive cycle. If people wanted to find out more about Abigail Ministries, where can they go, Kathy?
They can call 440-281-7136. Or they can go to our Facebook page, Abigail Ministries of Northeast Ohio, or our website, which is abigail-ministries.org.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much, Kathy. Again, if this resonates with you or someone in your family, please seek help. Reach out to us if you're not able to find resources, and we will get those for you. Thanks so much for your time, Kathy.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, you have a good day. All right, we're up against a break, but after this break, last time Brian wasn't here, I told you guys about Russell Brand was talking about how he was becoming a Christian. I think at that time he was kind of like wading into the waters, figuring it out. Well, you guys, he's been baptized.
Yes.
By another famous person. So after that break, we're going to talk to you more about that. Russell Brand. You remember him? He was kind of crazy. Maybe not so much anymore. Stay tuned. We'll hear more about his baptism.
Let's see. If something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that is MediShare. And maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save many families up to $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true people are way more satisfied after making the switch too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works too. It's been around for 30 years. Members have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. See what you can save. This is a very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. Call 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE. 877-58-BIBLE.
So, you're a college grad, but the enthusiasm of college life has faded, and the workaday world, it's kind of boring. What now? Find answers in 101 Questions You Need to Ask in Your 20s. Valuable advice and great humor. This book will help you feel better about your 20-something life and help you score a few more wins. 101 Questions You Need to Ask in Your 20s. Learn more at moodypublishers.com.
Helping you take the next step in your walk with Jesus. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
8:50 on Mornings with Brian. Just a couple minutes left. Last time Brian was out, I'm going to talk about all the things that I want when Brian's gone. I talked about Russell Brand. He made headlines last month for announcing his decision to be baptized. Okay. He was publicly wrestling with the tenets of Christianity and reading Christian authors such as C.S. Lewis and Rick Warren for months. He posted some Instagram video or something that we talked about, that he was just kind of, like this says, he was wrestling with the tenets of Christianity. I think he was a former Buddhist.
Yeah, he's probably been a few things.
He's been a few things. That's funny, Ron. So now he has officially been baptized. He was baptized in England in the River Thames.
Nice.
So
the River Thames is not nice.
No.
Yeah, I thought about that.
He describes it, and it's very funny. So Russell Brand was baptized on April 28th in the River Thames near his home Henley-on-Thames, Oxfordshire. Brand subsequently described his baptism as a, quote, incredible and profound experience that has left him feeling changed and surrendered to Christ.
Wow.
He said, week one as a Christian has been amazing. The ceremony itself was incredible. I want to thank, get this, Bear Grylls. Bear Grylls and my mate Joe, the two men that stood on either side of me, flanked me for my baptism itself. Bear Grylls. You know who that is?
Yes, I do.
Man versus Wild Bear Grylls.
Well, that's why he got baptized in the Thames. Thames, however you say it.
Yeah.
Because, yes, Bear Grylls, Man versus Wild, he would be just like dropped from a helicopter into the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And he had to survive. I don't even know if it was just survive, but like get out.
This is just like, man, good for Russell, but this is just such a wild story.
It's so wild.
And did you know Bear Grylls is the Order of the British Empire?
What does that
mean?
He's like got a, it's not royalty, but it's
He's knighted?
Almost knighted,
like
yeah.
Sir Bear Grylls?
I think so.
Sir Bear?
Sir Bear Grylls?
Yes.
Oh, wow. This is really great information. I love this. Okay. So I want to thank Bear Grylls and my mate Joe, the two men that stood either side of me and flanked me for the baptism itself. One of the United Kingdom's most prominent Christian celebrities, Grylls, starred in Discovery's Man vs. Wild. So I didn't know he was a Christian.
I had no clue either. I had to verify it. And yeah, he's very outspoken, apparently.
Yes, that's wonderful. So, okay, I have to get to these comments that Brand made about being baptized. Okay. Like many desperate people, I need spirituality, the former Buddhist said. I need God or I cannot cope in this world. Acknowledging that he, quote, didn't have enough self-discipline to resist the allure of stardom, he said that he fell face first into the glitter, and I'm now pulling myself out.
Good for him.
His baptism came less than a year after he was accused of some sexual assault. He says he was very promiscuous in the past, but that his encounters were always consensual. That's a long story that you could go look into as well. During the video announcing his baptism, Brand joked that he might also be getting baptized in E. coli in the heavily polluted Thames River.
Yeah.
He said, I may be leaving behind the sins, but I might be picking up some pretty serious viruses. So, hey, I don't know why you couldn't pick, like, I don't know, somewhere more clean.
A bathtub works.
A bathtub.
Most churches have baptismals,
Find
sir.
a church with a baptismal. There's other rivers, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, as wild as it is, I love stories like this because it's a reminder that no one is too far gone. I mean, he found Christ from Buddhism, from being a major celebrity, from a sexual assault allegation.
Yes.
So if you're praying for a wayward family member, God can still work his miracles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he did some pretty crass things, wasn't the greatest of people, and he says that, and he knows that, and he, like you said, is pulling himself out of it. And I'm grateful to see he has Bear Grylls, of all people, to help lead him along, a friend in the faith to help, show him what this life is like and to show him who Christ is and, walk along life with him. So
yeah, and to navigate the particulars of being a celebrity and a Christian, and how, I'm sure you get bombarded with a lot of questions that are designed to not find answers, but to trip you up, just like Jesus was. And so Bear can kind of help him along the way and say, look, don't do this, stay away from that, and be careful in these areas.
Yeah, I saw, it was an Instagram or TikTok video of Russell Brand. He was talking about, like, he was getting comments in his in his feeds about, like, oh, don't do this, do that, and read this and don't read that. And he's taking it all in. He's like, oh, so I heard I'm not supposed to read this thing or do this thing, so I'm going to try doing this. And he's just kind of soaking it all in. And it's fun to see just that new Christian in someone and exploring this new life. And I'm glad he has Bear Grylls. I'm glad he has someone, like you said, Ron, who's been a celebrity and a Christian and walking through that with him.
Yeah. I have a friend who used to be a Epicurean.
What is that?
He just dove into all sorts of life, legal or illegal. And
I love the way you phrased that.
Or illegal.
After he got saved, I was talking to him one time, and he's like, you know what? I was thinking, what if I read the Bible while I was dropping acid? I would see so much. And I'm like, no, don't do that. You will see things that are not there. You will be led astray. Try just keeping on the straight and narrow.
The dream, David's dream or Joseph's dream, whoever, about all the animals, that'd be a crazy one.
Yeah.
It's already crazy and it wasn't on acid.
Revelation on acid.
Oh, no, please don't. You'll be scared. It's already scary enough. You don't need to add to the scare.
Yeah.
Well, that was just some exciting news to finish up our Tuesday. We're back with you tomorrow. We have Dr. Idelnik, of course. So be sure to start thinking about what questions you have for Dr. Idelnik. We'll be back tomorrow. Brian is still out, but me, Ron, and Daria are not out.
No.
So,
We're in.
We're in.
We're so in.
We are so in, even if Brian is out, even if the people don't want us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take a quick break. No, we're gone. You took the song out?
Yes,
Great.
sorry.
Thank you. No, that's okay.
We're running a little long.